Knock knock. Who's there? Author. Author who? You don't have to rub it in. That's the big fear, isn't it? Well, I'm going to write this wonderful masterpiece of a novel. I'm going to get it out there. It's going to be really awesome, and nobody's going to read it. Yeah, that's probably true. And most authors really don't get published. They don't get to reach... Sorry, my cat's going crazy in the background, but he has a hammock. But yeah, you're probably not going to get mass market appeal. It's really hard to do that. There are some great authors out there who do find their niche or do find a wider audience, and they do some wonderful things. But before you decide to get into writing as a career, or as something that, well, it's going to make me rich and famous, one, cut the famous out of it because that's not important. Two, cut the rich out of it because that's probably not going to happen. But you may be able to get a livelihood out of it. One of the key ways of doing that is to be passionate about your writing. Be passionate about the fact that you are an author, that you are creating worlds for people to enjoy, which is a distinction I draw between just a writer and an author. All authors are writers. Not all writers are authors. Writing and being a writer is a wonderful job. It's a great career to have, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're an author. Just as an author doesn't mean you're going to be a technical writer unless your name is Tom Clancy, in which case if you read A Hunt for Red October, you're probably going to know how to fix a submarine. You want to be an author. You want to write your books. That's a start. But understand that creativity is not necessarily guaranteed as a thing. Now, there are some people who are just naturally gifted, just like with anything. You have that kid that... That was the cat feeder going off in the background. Don't mind it. I have two cats, and they lordeth over me. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is... What was I trying to say? One moment. Okay, as I was saying, that creativity is, some people are gifted with it, like the kid that can throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball right out of high school, or the kid that is jumping very, very high, the kid that can pull the story right out of his head and put it, or out of her head, and put it right onto paper, and they have this amazing first draft right off the bat. Not all of us are like that, okay? Not all of us are going to be able to do that. But the good news is that creativity is, some of it's gifted, yeah, absolutely, but also a good portion of it is actually talent that's learned, that we can look at something and apply thought and the wrinkles that create unique things out of it. That's a really cool thing to learn and actually exercise, and you can exercise it. One of the ways to do that is actually look at things that create and instill creative thought into you. Other pieces of art, visual art especially, is good for this because you can take a visual art and you have structure, and then you can apply that to what-if scenarios. And that question, by the way, is a very important question to have. What if? For example, let's take an image of this image of a typewriter that I'm looking at right now. And one, typewriters are inherently cool. But two, what's going on in this picture? Seriously, what's happening here? You can say, well, so obviously someone's typing on a typewriter with tea and a flower next to them. But at the same time, you could say, what if that person was writing a love letter? Well, there you have a romance novel. What if that person was writing a letter to the alien living down the lane? Then you have a very strange romance and maybe sci-fi. But the fact of the matter is there's a lot of things that you can glean from this. That question, it's very important for creative thought. You should always be asking, what if, what if, what if, what if? And in that way, never just ask it once. Otherwise, you're not sounding crazy enough to be a good author. No, that's all joking, but you should be able to look outside and look at the sunset, look at the sunrise, look at the horizon, and wonder what is on the other side. Now, one way to cultivate your creativity, one way to exercise it to make sure that you are actually creative in your creative writing is to always default to a state of creative thought. Now, of course, I say that and you're wondering, how the heck can I do that? Daydream. You should always be daydreaming. You should always default to that. When you have free time, you should just daydream. Create fantasies, fantasize about anything and everything. Go to the worst case scenarios, the best case scenarios, everything in between. You should default to A, a state of boredom, B, a state of daydreaming, and C, a constant state of what if and wonderment. Never, ever think that, well, it's silly to daydream. No, you have to be doing that. Some of the best stories come out of daydreams. Don't ask the question, can I be good enough to write? Am I good enough to write? Am I a good author? Don't ask that question. You're probably not going to be a good author at the start, okay? Writing is a skill. And if you are just now starting off as an author, you might find that your skill isn't quite good enough. You might find that your prose is a little too over the top. But the cool thing is you can develop this, which brings me to a word that every writer needs to have when they're writing their material, and that word is confidence. Say it with me. Confidence. You need to be confident in your writing. You need to believe that what you're writing is from you, because it is from you. Then be confident in what you're creating. Don't worry about, oh, what if the critics hate it? So what if they hate it? Okay, so what? Are there legitimate concerns here? Are there legitimate gripes? If there are, hey, I get to learn from that. I get to develop. I get to make myself better. Okay? Don't worry so much about whether or not you are good enough. You're writing. Be confident in your work. Be confident in what you're doing, because, yes, you have as much right to the word, you have as much right to the book, you have as much right to be published as anybody else. And in this day and age, there's no excuse not to publish. You can go through an agent, and they're out there, and they're good people, and they will help you get out there. But, if you can't find that right agent, independent. Do it yourself. There are too many avenues to get your stories out there. Don't worry so much about whether or not you're good enough. Be confident in who you are. Be confident in your writing. Be confident in what you're trying to create. Confidence is key. And if you don't have that, then you cannot be a competent writer. You are entitled to your voice. You are entitled to the words you put on paper. They are you.